Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Noble by Richa. And this Saturday, guess what? Who is here with us? And I'm going to reveal the surprise. We have Jay here with us from UK, and this podcast is going to be very interesting because the topic is the AI, the current topic which is in much demand. So, welcome to the show, Jay.
Thank you, Richa. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much for being here, Jay. And our audience would love to know about you, and then we can go ahead and we'll discuss about the topic which is designed for today.
Okay, amazing. So my name is Jay Trestain. I live in the UK, as you said. I work for a global IT consultancy as an executive partner, all about digital transformation and consumer engagement with technology. I'm a parent to three fabulous children, one of which I grew myself, two of which I've acquired as part of my current family, which is incredible. I'm an active member of my community, so I run or help run some beautiful historic cultural events. And I'm also on the board of directors for a local secondary school, so from 11 to 16 age group. But this is a topic that's very, very close to my heart, both professionally and personally. So I'm excited to be talking with you about it today.
Thank you so much, Jay. And it's really great to know about your experience and your journey. So moving ahead, the topic which we have designed. So nowadays, the hottest topic, which is AI everywhere, adoption of AI, implementation, having the productivity. But there is a other side as well. What if there is no internet all of a sudden, right? And the thinking capacity goes down because we are too much dependent on the AI tools. So, how the audience, how the people around should cope up with these changes? Do you think that's a drastic change for them?
Yeah, I mean, when you pose the original hypothesis, the challenge, actually it gave me cold sweats because as a working parent, my dependency on connectivity is not just a nice to have, it's critical to being able to do all of the things I want. And I say it as a joke that Amazon Prime enables me to be a half functioning parent and work very long hours in a global organisation because it's uber convenient. And when I forget things, which I always do, as we always do, Amazon Prime can be there on World Book Day for the costume or the ingredients for the baking or whatever it is. There's an element of convenience that has opened opportunities for people that, because they are now baked into society and the norm, they are no longer a nice to have, they're a minimum expectation. And if we were to switch that off, if some apocalyptic event would happen and all of that connectivity was removed, then the resulting shock, the whiplash, would be massive. And it's little things, think about how you access your money and how you pay for things. I don't often take a wallet with me with my physical card, but there in of itself is a problem. That's connected money. That's not real currency. So there's the extreme and the more conservative or more normal, I guess, impacts from, how do you go out and make sure you can feed your children? How do you entertain yourselves when there's no streaming services? Through to booking holidays and enabling airline pilots to communicate to the ground to make sure you can fly safely. So a world without connectivity would be a wildly different place. But actually, if you think about, to your point around the human element of that, I think this is where humans thrive. So we've evolved and have developed these technologies because we adapt and we are incredibly inspiring people that see things, create, innovate, and we would do the same thing again. And then we have if you look back at history, we have far much more history surviving without connectivity than we do with it. Whilst I think it would be a huge inconvenience and have massive consequences, we of course would survive. We would revert back to our childhoods for some of us. For some of us might not even remember a time when the world wasn't connected, but for some of us we do, and be inspired by how we turned up as community members, as parents, as working colleagues, and we would resurrect those ways of doing things. But then for me that poses another question, particularly as a female leader, working parent. A lot of what, I use the Amazon Prime example with real seriousness, that running a household is a huge job in of itself. And I'm very fortunate, my partner, he's a stay-at-home dad, and he takes the majority of the workload to enable me to do the things I love to do with my career and my hobbies, and be an active parent. But when you remove that convenience, the overhead associated with going shopping, providing for your family, getting materials for their homework, physically going to a library, all of that convenience that we take for granted in terms of how we turn up as family members is removed, and that has a big overhead in terms of consequences on gender bias. And we would need to, me personally, as my role as a woman leader advocating for equality, I would be fighting very hard that whilst we would look to history for inspiration on how to survive without connectivity, we would challenge those status quo expectations that the overhead of homekeeping shouldn't automatically be the responsibility of the woman, unless she wants that. That's a different thing. We should be challenging and learning from mistakes of the past to inform how we're inspired by an unconnected world, but taking it forward to continue to evolve how we are as human beings, as how we are as community members, as parents, as carers, as friends and colleagues.
That's really great to hear from you, Jay. So I have a question here. So since your work does involve a lot of traveling, so how you maintain, to be connected with your family, and does Jay feels little bit anxiety if the internet goes down and she's not able to connect, and how you try to be a strong woman always, or is there a point where Jay feels little bit anxiety? So we want to know the other side of Jay as well.
Yeah, a massive amount of anxiety without being connected. And I've got, there's been a couple of examples recently where there's a known bug in when I'm traveling and my email systems on my mobile phone. And if I don't pay attention, my emails can fully go offline. And I now it's happened a couple of times. I know how to easily fix it, so it's not an issue. But for those times I first navigated it, I was without emails on my mobile phone. And this is the lowest form of inconvenience. Literally, this is the lowest form. I could go onto my laptop and I could access my emails there. I have a million other forms of being spoken to digitally on my phone, but my emails were offline. So you asked me about the anxiety, and just giving you that really silly example, which actually isn't real inconvenience. The anxiety that it created was unbelievable. And that challenges me as an individual to recognise in those moments how dependent I am when I'm far from home, when I'm in a place I don't know. I often travel on my own. It creates an exposure there that I'm not used to and I'm not comfortable, and I can feel my whole demeanour changing. So I can't even imagine if you were to amplify that same impact where I'm travelling and there is no way for my family to know where I am. So, for example, we have GPS connectivity to all of us. So quite often I travel, as you know, into very different time zones to my children. And therefore, if they're at school, the window of opportunity for them to communicate with me is very small. And maybe I'm doing something critical with a client, it doesn't line up. And we might go 24, 48 hours without physically speaking to one another. But we've got text messaging and WhatsApp, and they can see physically via GPS where I am in the world, and knowing that they have that connection to me, even though we're not physically in the same room, even though we're not physically talking, that's really comforting for everybody. And just the thought of cutting that off and being in a completely different time zone, in a different world, that if something went wrong, they wouldn't know about it for a day, 2 days, a week. I wouldn't travel. I would not travel.
So, and talking about the streaming, like nowadays we have a lot of streaming channels, we have like
I've
internet.
got them all. I've got them
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have like our kids growing in this, technology world. So how you choose sometimes not to give that, exposure and give them the real world experience? And do you suggest that that should be balanced?
Yeah, I mean, your turn of phrase there is an interesting one, real world experience, because the reality is screens, digitization, the metaverse for our children, it is a real world experience because we have made our society to be that way. So for me, it's about balance. I want my children to be digitally expert, not just native. I want them to be digitally expert. But I don't just mean interfacing with screens and information that's presented digitally. I want them to understand the algorithms of social media and how they can be brilliant, but how they can also not be brilliant. And until they can describe back to me how personalisation on social media happens, about where your eye falls on the screen, about micro hesitations as you're scrolling and what that does to the algorithm and how that feeds you more information. Until they understand that and they can communicate it back to me, things like TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram are off the table. Once they understand how they work and they can manage their own feed, as it were, then it's a beautiful way to access the world and be connected to people of different cultures, of communities, different food, be inspired by travel. Like when you understand how it works and you can make it work positively for you, then it's an incredible thing. Until such time, and unfortunately people fall victim to this because it's very sophisticated, it can become an echo chamber for terrible, terrible things. And that skews people's perspective and you lose that balance. So for me, digitisation, digital screens, digital experiences, access to the internet is an incredible privilege, but I want my children to be digitally expert. That being said, we're really lucky we live on a farm in the UK. It's a beautiful little farm. And it means my daughter has a horse, a little pony, and we live on the coast and we can access the sea. All of my children play field hockey, so that for me it's really important that they have the team sports, they have the physical connection with the animals, they're outside, they have independence to keep that problem solving muscle memory, so that with AI a lot of that cognitive load can be outsourced by an AI assistant or an AI agent. I want them to practice that unconnected experience so that they have the problem solving curiosity that makes humans uniquely human versus AI being uniquely AI.
Yes. And I have one more question for you. How important do you think to have a very supporting partner in all this
Oh my God.
changes, the
Yeah.
generational changes, the technology changes, traveling, work, and balancing your mental, peace? How important it is?
I don't know how to express how important it is, because I think particularly as a woman in these kinds of environments, it's easy for people to see the LinkedIn version, the keynotes on stage, the swanning around from place to place. They don't see what goes on behind the scenes in order to make those curated, polished moments a possibility. The reality, so as a little bit of background, I was married previously and my husband, unfortunately my husband passed away
Yes,
from
sorry to
cancer
hear
a
that.
couple of years ago. And he was also, prior to his illness, he was also a stay-at-home dad, because I'm very career orientated, but I'm also family orientated, and we had to redefine what that meant for us to create an environment where we could both thrive. And my late husband was a wonderful father and wanted to be very hands-on and be on the farm, and actually stepping out of a traditional workplace was an amazing way to be able to do that. Roll the clock forward, I'm in a different relationship with a very different individual, but his sense of values in terms of creating a role model family where he as a father is wonderfully hands-on, but also incredibly supportive of me as a woman. And we've got 3 children, 2 are girls, and both fiercely feminist powerhouses in their own right. Very different, but they're going to go on to do amazing things. But I've having my partner be so hands-on, I couldn't do what I do without him. In fact, there was a time when I was on my own with my daughter, after my husband passed away, and I was having to have real serious conversations of, you cannot do it all. I don't care what anybody says, you can't do it all. You can't be there for all of the sports events. You can't be there for homework all of the time. You can't be there when they fall out with their friends and they want to be cross and have their mum to look after them, and be a global executive partner for an IT company that needs to be available all the time. Those 2 things just don't work. So for me, having a partner that is a partner, like he is my teammate, he is my friend, he is the guy that coaches me to challenge everything and to be available and to say yes, because he will be there to pick up the load, is probably my most valued dimension of my life. He's amazing. I'm very grateful for him.
That's really great to know the strongest version of yours, Jay. And do you think it is important as well to be vulnerable at times?
Oh my God. Yeah. Because I think, again, it goes back to my point of, I really had to get good at this when my husband was really ill, because I was a carer for him as well, and my employer was just phenomenal at understanding what I needed and creating an environment where I could be there for myself and know that I had a career to go back to, but equally not feel like I was missing moments with my husband that I knew would also. I only had so many moments left. We could see he was becoming very, very poorly. We knew it was inevitable what was going to happen. But I think being vulnerable and having the confidence to be vulnerable without any fear of repercussions enabled me to do that, because I could communicate clearly what I needed. It's like, I want to be here for my employer and my client, but I cannot physically travel, and at a moment's notice I might need to disappear because he becomes unwell. And I want you to know that's not because I'm in any way not committed to you. It's just there's some other stuff going on. So that side of my life was very visible to a lot of people, not because I necessarily wanted to show off about it or talk about it, but having clear, when people understand what's happening, they can help you, because inherently people are amazing and they want you to be successful and they want to know how they can be helpful for you. So sharing that knowledge and sharing that insight and being vulnerable with people, it created a network of amazing individuals and colleagues who enabled me to thrive at the worst possible time of my life. So yeah, vulnerability for me, learnt the hard way, but is such a underrated thing. And I really feel for people that don't feel they've got the psychological safety to be vulnerable. And I think that's something that I try to take with me in all of the things that I do, is to create an environment where people feel safe to share what's going on with them so that they can turn up and thrive, because everybody's going through something. Everybody.
Yes, everybody. Yes. It's just that some people tend to speak up and some people tend to, balance it out by hiding or
That's
just,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. And I think that equally, I think there's a subtle difference when I'm talking about vulnerability, I don't necessarily mean you need to talk about things all the time. I do, and I'm comfortable with that. For some people, that doesn't help them. For me, it helps. For some people, it doesn't. That doesn't mean to say they're not being vulnerable. They may choose another way to make maybe it's an email, maybe it's a text message, maybe it's a one-time conversation, and they say, right, this is the information, and I'm not going to talk about it again, but you have it now. And that's a really wonderful version of vulnerability. So being vulnerable means something different to everybody, I think, and that's wonderful.
Yes, and I totally agree on this. So, do you think still people have this fear of being little bit slightly judged, that if we being vulnerable, we'll be judged, and maybe the information which I share from myself to another person, it might get leaked or be a point of conversation between two, three members. So, still we have this fear.
Yeah, of course. And I think I see it happen with myself. Like, lots of people that I've never spoken to know my circumstance. And to begin with, that felt uncomfortable, that obviously conversations were happening without me being in them about me. And that's okay, because, you know, fair enough, some people perhaps were gossiping and maybe it didn't come from a very good place, but I choose not to believe that. I choose to believe that people are inherently good, people are inherently got my best interest in mind, and by having those conversations, they were creating a safety net around me that meant I didn't need to have those conversations. And for me, it's a matter of perspective. I think this is what goes to creating an environment of psychological safety. You can't control how people are with you, but you can control how you turn up and how you respond to it. And equally, as a leader, I can control if I see or hear or in any way feel that people are taking information and not being respectful with it, then I can create an environment where that's inherently known that's not okay. So I think that's always a risk and that's always a fear. But for me, I've got too many other fun things to be worrying about to stress my time about worrying what anybody else is thinking. But if I can help others to feel that confident and go that way, then I will. Otherwise, meh.
Okay, and going back to our topic of this podcast, so with this AI, you know that slightly thinking capacity or the creativity is too much dependent on AI. So, what is the conclusion you want to give to our audience, that dependency on AI tool is the need of the hour, but it should not go way beyond the limit. So, do you think there should be a line between being dependent and to being dependent?
So I think there's power in knowledge around AI, and I can understand people's fear of AI taking over responsibility for stuff that should inherently be human. But if you do what we do, which is you work in that space day in, day out, actually, there is a risk of that if you're not educated and you're not helping yourself to understand. Absolutely. But it goes back to my principles with my kids around digitisation and safety. Educate yourself and understand how the AI works.
Right.
And then you'll see where the opportunities and risks and how you can navigate. So I'll give you a real example, and this has genuinely happened with me this week. So I spent a lot of time talking to leaders of enterprise about, you know, AI should be making my organisation a million times more productive. I'm exaggerating, of course. Why is it not? And the reality is, where they've used AI, it might be enhancing a task, but the overall process still remains the same. I'm an active user, love Copilot for summarisation of emails, of helping me write emails, but it doesn't necessarily make the workflow associated with the content of that email any better. It's just enabling me to do more emails in a day. And this is, you'll hear people say, well, I've got AI, where's all this free time? I just seem to be busier. And that's because you're giving yourself capacity to do more strategic things rather than spending time on the transactional. So that's example number one. But where I get really excited is I'm not a coder. I say I'm not technical, and I'm not. Clearly, I have an element of understanding of technology that most normal people that don't work in tech have or don't have. But if you put a screen of code in front of me, I don't know what I'm looking at. So I have technical understanding. I'm not a deep technical developer, and for me that's a real inhibitor to my creativity, because I might have an idea. I speak to a client and they explain to me what their working problem is. I have an understanding of how the platforms work and the features, but I can't necessarily myself bridge that gap and showcase to a client the art of the possible. I'm dependent on articulating that, putting it down as user requirements, then getting it translated to a technical request, and then finding a developer, and then. And it takes time, the moment is lost. This week I played with an amazing, I'm going to use the word tool, but it doesn't feel like a tool is the right phrase. And it's an internal feature that our organisation has brought out, which enables agentic development. And I gave myself a day to really play with this thing. And I started with something really simple. And then based upon that learning, I went into something more complicated, and it enabled me through natural language. I described what I wanted and I dictated it into Word, actually, using Copilot. And then I asked Copilot to assume the role of the developer to help me refine the requirements based upon my layman's description of what I wanted to do. Then that translated into the agentic development platform. And in 2 hours, I'd created a working prototype of a campaign that I wanted to be able to showcase to a client. And it was in my tone of voice. It had my colouring. It was a bit cheeky. It didn't sound like my organisation's. It was inherently me. I put Easter eggs in it to make clients laugh. And it was fun and it was engaging. And it was a prototype. It's clearly not connected. But in terms of my role and my creativity and the love for technology as being an enabler to new things, I couldn't have done that without AI. It's not stifling my creativity. It is giving me a platform to stretch into a space that has been previously unavailable to me. And that is what I would take away from this conversation, is that yes, there are risks with AI. And if you don't empower yourself to be curious and explore what it means, then you will be led by what social media tells you, or what it is you want to believe. Educate yourself and be inspired by the opportunities it makes available that weren't there previously, because for me, that outweighs.
About your creativity and your love for your favorite color. We want to know. Color. You know what we are talking about, Jay.
Yes, so
Yes.
I mean, my favourite colour is clearly green. It's not.
Yes.
It's purple.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, it's purple. Okay, so the story of my favourite colour is this. I've always been a lover of bright, vibrant colours. I think it makes people smile. I think it makes and brings energy. I never really had a favourite colour for my own. I love neons, and then I love bright green and yellow and red, and can never land. And I had a conversation with my late husband one day, and he turned around and he's like, well, my favourite colour is purple, and I think purple looks good on you. So I got my hair dyed purple, and the rest is history. And he's right, purple does look good on me. So my house is purple, my hair is purple, my glasses purple. But that is the story of me having no ability to make a decision, and my husband telling me purple looked good.
This is something new which we got to know, and I as well got to know, and it's really lovely to know this. So do you think like during work or the PPTs or the data which we present, it is very important to have little bit of cheesy things on a professional note, to make it on a lighter note, not to be very serious. It's okay to be happy during the working things while representing the data and the other things.
Absolutely. I hope that this will make the team smile, because I try always to bring lightness and fun, even when things are really serious. Like, professionally, I and my team have had to deal with some real serious situations. Bringing lightness and fun to the situation doesn't mean you're taking it any less seriously. It can make it engaging and want people to lean into it, and it makes them relax. And you think about any situation where you're stressed and you're like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Your brain is so focused on the panic mode that it is very difficult to unleash the full potential of problem with energy and fun and lightness, but without losing the focus on the right outcome. As a team, we are more creative, we have more fun doing things. People want to come and work in this space where you can both be high performing and have a good time, that builds respect and trust through team members, so that you can be flexible with, actually I'll need to finish early at this time to do a thing outside of work. I'll help you. Can you give me the same respect in the direction? Absolutely. So for me, turning up like I do, with colour, with energy, with laughter, does not dilute how seriously I take turning up and being a professional. I think it's just how I uniquely want the energy I create to be projected. And turns out clients quite like it too. It's a bit different. It can be fun to work with. I can ask really tough questions, and earn the right to do so. So no, I absolutely think you can and should do both things, because for me, work is so much a part of who I am. If I can't enjoy myself while I'm doing it, what's the point? And I want others to feel that way too.
Yeah, right. And what is the summary of the entire podcast you want to give to our audience? Definitely, we got to know the strongest version and the happiest version of Jay, as always. So, any summary from your end, what our viewers can extract from our podcast?
For me, it's balance. I think technology and the innovations that technology bring around connectivity and AI open up a world of possibility to us that we can only just start to understand, because it's evolving every day. And for us as individuals, that presents opportunities and threats. And each of us needs to work out what the opportunity is and grab it, and what that threat is and manage for it. And that will look differently for everybody. But I think for me, it's all about balance. I think that being a human in society, being a member of a family, being a friend, being a community member, being somebody that runs events for the community, it takes more than connectivity. It takes empathy and curiosity and problem solving and innovation and asking good quality questions and all of those amazing things. And you don't get that just by sitting in front of a screen. So for me, it's about balance. It's about grabbing hold of what technology and connectivity makes available to you without losing sight of what you've got around you, about nature, around the physicality of exercise, about being in a team. Go do that as well. It's not one or the other. It's a balance in the middle.
Definitely. And thank you so much, Jay, for sharing all your experience. And for our viewers, we had Jay here with us, and we did discuss about the AI, the dependency of AI, and the other side as well, which they can, utilize in their day-to-day life, being the strongest version and being vulnerable at times. And it is totally fine. So nobody's gonna judge you, and reach out to your family, your team members, to your friends if you are in a different situation, because it's totally fine to not to be fine at times.
That's right.
Yes, yes. And at the end, Thank you so much for sharing all your positive energy here with us, which we are going to pass on to our viewers. And definitely, once you are back to India, we are going to grab you again for face to face
Yes.
podcast.
Yeah, love
Let's
it. I
do it
can't wait.
again.
I can't wait.
Yes. Yes. So I am eagerly, excited and will wait for you once you are back in India. I'm going to grab your time again. We'll have a
Good.
face to face
Part two.
studio.
Yeah, part
Yeah,
two.
part two. Yeah, studio podcast. Yes.
Good. Thank you,
And
Richa. It's been a
thank you
pleasure to be
so
here. Thank you.
likewise, Jay. And this Saturday is gonna be fantastic after having a conversation with you. So thank you so much. And till the time, stay tuned. Noble by Richa.